my people, and welcome back to the Ricardo Report on DKN Sports. I'm your host, Chad Ricardo, and joining me just like every other week, I got my girl, Miss Sierra Breeze.
Hi, Chad.
We are going to have a heck of a show for you coming up here today. I got guest Michael Salahuddin, one of the top prospects in the entire DMV. Of course, Joshie Laurie, the colorful one, will be joining us later on. First and foremost, on set, my main man, Ricardo Report contributor, Mr. T. Forrest. Thank you for joining us again this week, bro.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Always good.
And our guest for A Block, Mr. Martin Ispazua, my good friend. You are Assistant Athletic Director at Richard Montgomery. Thank you for joining the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Now, for anybody out there, Martin, you and I, we've been friends for a very long time. We've got you on the show today because I know that you are extraordinarily passionate about the kids. You've been working with youth for what, like well over 15 years or so?
Yes, sir.
What would cause somebody to do such a stressful job for so long?
I don't know. I think it's a calling. I mean, I think it's one of those things where you just feel a passion for it. It comes from growing up yourself. You know, you are in high school or you're even in middle school and you have mentors and you have, you know, folks that are maybe a little bit like older, like 4 or 5 years older than you that have done it and you want to get to that same level. And it's just kind of like a mentoring process. And then once that bug is put into you, you just want to pass it along to as many other people as possible.
It's the love bug.
It's dope.
It's the love bug.
The love bug.
It's dope.
Yeah.
Not the punch buggy bug, but the love bug.
Love, exactly. So in your work with teens, especially athletes, what do you find is most challenging for them?
For the actual athlete?
For teens, athletes, just in general.
You know, that's a great question, and I think you have to answer that kind of like two different ways. I think it's important to identify the fact that, yes, there is a lot of pressure in sports. Everybody wants to be the winner, and I feel like the pressure nowadays is getting to build up a lot with the kids, and it's kind of starting to break certain emotions down, and kids need additional supports. But another issue that we have with student athletes is sometimes the parents.
Wow.
Sometimes the parents are the ones that are putting so much more pressure on the child, pushing them into a sport that they don't even want to play.
Exactly.
They would much rather be playing soccer, but because daddy was a football player, now he's got to go play football.
Exactly.
That pressure is unneeded in the sporting world, especially in high schools, public schools.
Right, it's for fun. You're playing to have
How do
fun.
you work through that? Like, how do you manage that? Because obviously there's the pressure, the parental pressure,
right.
But then there's also your desire to make sure that the kids are actually, you know, having a great time. So how do you balance that out?
Balance comes from the actual student athlete and from the coaching staff.
Wow.
I think that the coaches do a great job of building up their players, but also having that courageous conversation when, you know what, this really isn't the sport for you. I mean, have you been introduced to lacrosse? Have you seen anything? You know, you like track because you're fast, but you don't really like getting hit.
Right.
Why don't you go down this path?
Right.
And then also with the parents. I mean, as an athletic director, we get complaints on a daily basis. We get parents that are concerned, parents that are angry. My child didn't play, my kid this, my kid that. The coach said this, the coach said that. And sometimes the response on the email is just, let the kids play, let the coaches coach.
I feel bad because I'm going to be one of those parents.
Right.
I know I will be. Like,
Look,
absolutely.
You know, RM has had a good couple of years on the football field, and look, after everybody is watching this, more parents are going to send their kids to come be under your tutelage.
I hope so. It'd be great.
I tell you what, though, it's time to get into our hot take of the day. Of course, all of you out there at home, you know that you can reach us either on Facebook or with Twitter with your questions if you'd like to have us discuss them. Facebook at The Ricardo Report, Twitter at Ricardo Report. Hot take of the week today comes from Julissa Scott in Northeast. Here's what she said. We're going to talk about Rob Gronkowski if you all are ready for this. Julissa said, Mr. Ricardo, I saw Rob Gronkowski recently at WWE, and I've seen him previously partying, yet he never gets in trouble. I often wonder if my son would get the same treatment if he acted the same way. Interesting question. Is there a double standard for Rob Gronkowski?
Now, I'm going to assume she's African American.
We can only assume. We don't know. We can only make assumptions.
Okay,
Here.
all right. No.
Okay.
Her son will not be treated the same way.
Wow.
Yes,
Straight up.
there is a double standard, and it's not foreign to the United States. You know, it's in sports. Now, with the NFL in particular, there's always been the white guy's got to do this much,
Right.
but the black guy's got to do that much to be half as respected.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Yes.
Now that's interesting. Coach, assistant athlete. Now you're around these student athletes all the time. What's your take?
I'm around them all the time, but also us being athletes as well and just growing up in the community.
That's a former athlete. I wasn't that good. That's why I talk sports now.
Listen, I wasn't that good either. But to be honest with you, I mean, I agree with you 100%, but it's not just in sports, guys. I mean, let's be honest here. It's life. I mean, listen, I look as white as possible, but I'm definitely Ispizua last name, Latino, bilingual, and you know, being a big guy with a shaved head is kind of intimidating walking in a room. So I have to lower my voice. I have to calm my approach. I have to extend my hand slowly.
Because of what?
Just because of what people's perception is of me, or what they see on the media, or what they've learned throughout their life. It's unfair, but we've been dealing with it for how long now?
Absolutely. That's why I say it's not foreign. You know? Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I like to do is, of course, to bring up the counter points, the counter arguments here. And many people who come to Gronk's defense would say, well, he never actually does anything troubling. He doesn't do anything menacing. He may party, he may take pictures that maybe he shouldn't, but he doesn't do anything menacing. Does that then make it okay? They say he's more just like a safe frat guy.
Yeah, there's a fine line between a safe frat guy and a criminal, or somebody that's going to find charges against them at some point or the other.
Especially you, Breeze, from a young lady's perspective.
I don't know. Seeing that kind of manner, behavior, for me is kind of a turnoff.
Okay.
I'm not into that, but I would just say that
Sarah Breeze taking personal accounts right here at the Ricardo Report.
I'm saying that he is not, I wouldn't look up to him if I were a young man or even a young woman who's thinking about getting into, I mean, there are a lot of young women trying to get into football, and they're trying to see that that's not what I want to get into. So I don't know, for me, looking at someone partying all the time and not focusing really on the sport, yes, he's a fantastic player. I respect him, but when you're doing that all the time, I don't know, can you look up to someone like that?
So my perspective on this is a little more specific. So you look at sports athletes like Richard Sherman.
Correct.
You know?
Correct. Excellent example.
He doesn't have to do a lot to be called a thug. Really. All he has to do is complain one time. It's not wrong to party.
Right.
No.
Gron is not a partier. Gron is way more than that.
He is the party.
I mean, we're talking about a football player chugging beers, you know, everywhere. Literally,
on stage,
the NFL will be on his behind.
Correct.
If, you know, this was just any other person.
Right.
But it's Gron being Gron. That's what everybody says.
Gronk being Gronk.
Yeah.
Didn't the boys go on that party trip down to Miami on the boat, and then they lost the Super Bowl, and they got scrutinized?
Right.
They're scrutinized.
And they didn't even have the pictures and photos and whatnot there.
And an interesting thing, Martin mentioned, this is even beyond sports. You know, when you think about other arenas, I really don't like, you know, mentioning this, but our president, you know, was married 3 times. Would Hillary Clinton be allowed to even be on the presidential ticket if Bill Clinton was her 3rd husband?
That's real.
Let's
so
ask that
you're going
question.
from the female perspective.
Yes, from
here
the
as well.
female perspective as well. You know, the sports athletes, let's look at the soccer team, which is, I would say, the most successful sports team that we have as far as females go, right? Our soccer team is probably the best. Can they do stuff like this?
Probably
Absolutely not. Absolutely
Who did we
not.
have last week? The boxer.
Tori Shonuff Nelson.
Can she do stuff
Absolutely
like this?
not.
Tori Shonuff, show can't do things like Rob Gronkowski.
So, yeah.
I'll tell you what, excellent conversation. This was a terrific hot take, like I said. Ladies and gentlemen at home, please do feel free to shoot us those on Facebook at The Ricardo Report or on Twitter at Ricardo Report as well. Maybe we'll take your hot take next week. Martin Ispizua, Assistant Athletic Director at Richard Montgomery, thank you very much, brother. T-Force, we will see you next week. Coming up next, one of the top high school student athletes in the DMV. Keep it locked right here. It's The Ricardo Report. Back at the Ricardo Report, at DKN Sports. Myself, Chad Ricardo, Miss Sierra Breeze. Coming up, of course, Joshie Lauria is going to join us, and we got Michael Salahuddin, one of the top prospects in the nation. First, though, it's time to take a look at 3 student athletes from right here in the area.
So this week, we're going to look at 3 phenomenal basketball players who are big-time seniors. Up first is DJ Harvey, the 6'5" shooting guard from DeMatha, who is actually heading over to Notre Dame next year.
What's up.
I know, it's pretty cool. Chris Likes from Gonzaga, the smallest big man we have ever witnessed. Young man has ice running through his veins. He is headed to the University of Miami, and I'm pretty excited. It's nice and warm down there. Speaking of big men, our very good friend Luka Garza, potentially the most dominant student athlete in the DMV in 2017. He was on the show last week, and I just adore him. Probably one of the sweetest kids I've interviewed. So nice. Can't wait to see him at Iowa. He's pretty cool.
Huge
so
fans.
Tall.
Huge
so
fans
tall.
of Luka Garza. Huge fans.
Absolutely.
This week's DCSAA Student Athlete of the Week is Reese Mona from St. John's College High School. He's a combo guard out there. He's a leader, a fierce competitor, and a sharp shooter who's going to be spending his next 4 years right here as a preferred walk-on at the University of Maryland. It's enough of student athletes that aren't here, though,
Yeah,
Breeze. We got to introduce the young man, if I can get my words right, that is here right now from H.D. Woodson, Mr. Michael Salahuddin. How are you, brother? Welcome to the show.
Appreciate you for having me again.
Man, thank you for having us. The last time you were here, the people absolutely loved you. They clamored for you to be back on the show.
Yes, sir.
And we're sorry that you got to be sitting beside the very colorful Mr. Joshie Lauria. Breeze, Josh, what jersey you got on this week, bro?
I got on my Tyler Palco Pitt jersey. Yeah, the guy who beat out Joe Flacco.
That says enough. Mike, we'll get to the questions on you in just a moment here, but I'm interested in getting you all's perspective. We were just now talking about Rob Gronkowski and the subject of if there's a double standard that applies to him. What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
I believe there is a double standard. I believe that Gronkowski needs to keep his social life and his football life at a clear path and a clear difference.
That's real. If you were to act the same way as Rob Gronkowski did, do you believe that you would be treated the way that he does?
I believe that I would somewhat be treated. I believe that I would have some consequences.
Right.
I don't think that actions that he's displaying should be treated in the manner that it is, but I believe that he's okay, and he should pick up his act real quick.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real. Josh, I know you had some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, really, the reason that Gronk gets a pass, and I'm not because of race, it's because he's Gronk, okay? We're talking about a man who can't count to 70 with a straight face or bursting out laughing. He gets away with it because he's a harmless teddy bear.
So, nothing to do, no race situations here.
If there was a black guy who looked like him and acted like him and performed like him, you'd have every sports radio talk host in the nation calling for him to be fired.
Okay.
That's the fact of the matter.
So he just kind of contradicted himself.
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, but we'll get back. We're here to talk to Michael
70.
today.
He can't count to 70.
So, earlier in the year, you interviewed with Chad, and you talked about how important it was for you to play for your community.
Yeah.
I was wondering why that was.
It's a struggle trying to make it out from Washington, D.C. in order to better yourself. And I believe that when we're given this opportunity, we gotta make it run. Like Parnell Motley is out of Oklahoma.
Right.
He's doing his thing. It's just every chance that we get, every chance that students from Washington, D.C., we get to go put on for the city. We got to do it, and we got to fulfill those dreams and obstacles.
I love that. I definitely respect that. I really do.
And I know that you had spoken previously about how important it is for the younger student athletes that are coming after you. I mean, do you feel that, is that on your shoulders, the fact that there are people that are walking in your footsteps that are looking up to you?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a thought that I always think about, always trying to lead by example, because I know it's people looking up to me. I always try to motivate others, try to motivate the younger ones to stay in the books, stay on the field, that like the dreams, it can come true in order you just work hard.
That's real.
Exactly.
That's real.
Yeah. Now, you've been on our radar since last year and you had an outstanding junior season, so you're starting to get traction on the national stage. You recently got an offer from the Trojans. How has your recruitment changed since your junior year finished?
My recruitment is just picked up tremendously. Like, at first, it was about 4 offers on the table.
No more.
I was like, it's decision time already. And then it just picked up out of nowhere, just all through God. And it's just a blessing.
Right.
Just trying to figure out what school is best for me, which is going to lead me to a better life when football is over.
There you go.
Speaking of your time out there at high school at HD Woodson, the Proud Warriors, it's a public school. Now, of course, you all are playing oftentimes at the same time as some of these private schools from the WCAC. What I want to ask from you is, an outstanding student athlete such as yourself, do you at times feel as though the Gonzagas, the St. John's, the DeMathas, that you all are overshadowed by them? And if so, is that fair or foul?
I do believe that we're overshadowed, but at the end of the day, it's all whoever worked the hardest.
Absolutely.
It's all whoever won it, and it's all whoever's going to go out and get it.
That is amazing. I tell you what, we got a couple of questions for you about some of the other top athletes in the DMV in just a second. You'll hang tight with us?
Yes, sir.
My man, Michael Salahuddin, you keep it locked right here. We'll be right back. Back at the Ricardo Report on DKN Sports. Chad Ricardo, as always, Miss Sierra Breeze. We got Joshie Laurie in the building with your Tyler Palco jersey that you got on.
I put on from my dad's alma mater.
I like it.
But most importantly, one of the top prospects in the DMV, Michael Salahuddin, right back here with us. Mike, I want to speak to you about some student athletes here in the DMV. Of course, it is extraordinarily rich with talent out here. What I want to know from you, yourself aside, tell me about 2 other top running backs in the DMV. Who would you mention in that breath?
Well, of course, I got to put on my man, Marcel Foster. He's my running back with me at HD Wilson. Been with him for about 3 years, and he just always pushed me to work harder, put that extra effort in when I want to be lazy, days when I want to take plays off. Knowing that like somebody else is right there trying to take my spot.
Right.
So it's a relationship that is thick and thin. Like one day we button heads, one day we brothers. It's just a relationship that you need to have.
Got that 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And another running back that really stuck out to me is the dude Blake that goes to Pilates. I believe 2019.
Right.
Kid is awesome. I watched him, went to a couple of camps with him over the years. He can really do his thing. He'll be a 30-plus offer kid.
Right. Already. Blake Corum, we're obviously very, very familiar with Blake. He's a friend of the show as well. Josh, what about yourself?
Okay, well, first, I got to go with Ricky Slade. Okay. I'm not going to say too much because I can't do him justice. He's just a special type of athlete.
Yeah.
And second one, I'm going with another running back from the class of 2019, Marshawn Lloyd, who was at DeMatha. We didn't really get to see him play that much because they had running backs ahead of him, but he's a freshman All-American, and he showed off his moves in the kick return game.
Freak of nature.
Absolutely.
Freak of nature. Of course, Blake Corum as well as Marshawn Lloyd, GYFL alums. Yeah, that's amazing.
I like it. So, okay, we talked about that. What about quarterbacks? Give me 2 quarterbacks in the DMV, and Josh, you too.
Well, I'm actually going to get my 2 quarterbacks from DCIAA.
There we go.
Khalil Wright and Stevie Williams. 2 quarterbacks that I've watched over the years that just emerged to become one of the top ones in the area. Khalil Wright, it's a special ability with him. He can throw the deep ball. He can scramble. He can hit the short routes. He can change plays. He can audible. He's just your own offensive coordinator right there in the huddle. And Stevie Williams, he's a competitor.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
A deep ball threat. It's just he's always gave a show every time I played against him.
ODU commit, right?
Yes, sir.
That's right. That's what's up. And Khalil, young man, did a ton. He was actually one of Breezy's boys.
Yeah,
we highlighted him. We highlighted him a couple of weeks ago.
And he's tough as nails, too. I had to shout him out, and also Chris Ferguson. I mean, DC football doesn't get the credit it deserves. Those 2 can go up against any of the WCAC signal callers.
That's real.
Yeah. And my top 2 quarterbacks, we're going to go with the Va-Tech commit, DeJuan Ellis. Huge arm. And if it's not there downfield, he can make those plays with his legs. I was looking at his tape, and I earlier today, and it reminded me a lot of the athleticism that Menzel showed off
Wait,
outside.
of who?
Menzel.
As in Johnny?
Hey,
You
I'm
just
talking
compared
about
Dewan Ellis to Johnny
I'm
Manziel?
talking about before he started partying too much, when he was on the straight and narrow, focused on football, okay? Johnny was a baller. He won the Heisman for a reason.
To the Ellis family, please find Josh on Twitter at J_ILORI.
Now, if you're going to say it right, JILORI_22.
There it is.
My other quarterback, Kevin Doyle, St. John's newest commit. I had him ranked pretty low when I did my top 100, but he had just transferred into the region. I hadn't really taken a look at him. I apologize, okay? I didn't do my due diligence. But hey, 6'4", he looks the part. He's got a big arm, great athlete, 17 offers, and 24/7 Sports has him headed to Pitt.
Oh, that's why you wore the jersey. You see him? Popping his collar. Back to recruiting and Mike. I know you got a question for him, Josh.
All right. Now, most of the time during the recruiting process, it's you trying to sell yourself to schools. But I really want to know, what are you looking for in a school, both academically and athletically?
Well, there are multiple things I'm looking for into a school. First and foremost, the academic part.
That's real.
Which school, like I said in the earlier segment, which school is going to provide the best opportunity for me when the football is over with. Of course, playing time is always a factor. And how they connect with my family and friends, and how they connect with me, the coaches. Those are my three most important factors.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. They're pretty much, you're going to be around them more than your family for those 3-4 years.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, I want to ask you this real quick. Does it matter to you right now whether you go in as a running back or an athlete or a DB?
Of course, running back is my main position, but I'm going in to help the team win championships. So if I have to play both sides of the ball, if I had to play just strictly defense, strictly running back, it's for the team.
That's what's up.
Perfect. So, okay, imagine that I'm the Virginia Tech student body.
We got a little bit for you right now, Mike. You know, work with us here. Roll with us.
Just imagine, close your eyes. What is attractive to you about our school?
Of course, a ton of Hokies fans around.
Ton of Hokies fans.
Over the couple of months after receiving that Virginia Tech offer, the coaching staff it just felt like friends and family, and it just felt like home. Virginia Tech, they always call. Well, not call. I call them. It's always. Yeah,
Want to get that straight. Right.
It's always good conversations with them. It's just feel like home.
I like that.
We'll get you out of here on this one. Since you speak about home, of course, we got the University of Maryland, we got the movement. So if Breeze represented the Virginia Tech Hokies, allow me to represent all of the Terps fans out there. What attracts you about the option and potential of playing at UMD?
Well, of course, the football aspect is always a thing, but Coach Azar, when I was up there on a visit, he really hit on a point. But when you're done, all said and done with football, and you all establish in your life, you're always gonna go back to your hometown. And that network that you're gonna build from being a Maryland player and producing on the football field, that network that you're gonna build throughout that process, coming back home and being able to get a job and being able to just move around the city freely, it'll make that process much easier.
Bro, you are an extraordinarily impressive young man. What are you up at, about 30 offers right now? Bro, by the time this comes out, you'll be at about 50, I'm telling you. Every college out there, please do look up my main man, Michael Salahuddin. On behalf of this tremendous young man, on behalf of Martin Ispazua, Josh E. Laurie, Sierra Breeze, and T. Forrest, I'm your host, Chad Ricardo. Please be sure to follow us on social media networks. We'll see you next week.